My family had a secret group chat where they insulted me until my aunt accidentally sent me a voice message meant for them calling me names. I never thought I'd be the person who discovers their entire family thinks of them as a walking ATM. Actually, that's not entirely accurate. I knew they needed my help. I knew I was the one keeping things afloat financially. What I didn't know was that they had a group chat dedicated to managing me like a resource to be extracted. Let me back up. My name is Nora. I'm 32 years old, and for the last 8 years I've been supporting my parents, my brother, and occasionally my aunt. Not just helping here and there either, I'm talking complete financial support. Rent, car payments, medical emergencies, school fees, everything. When I got my first job with a decent salary at 24, fresh out of college, my father sat me down and explained that family takes care of family. My mother cried about how they'd sacrificed everything for my education. My brother, 3 years younger, was still finding himself. How could I say no? I didn't say no for 8 years. The video arrived on a Tuesday night at 11:47. I know the exact time because I checked my phone obsessively for the next 6 hours, alternating between watching the 43-second clip and staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I'd somehow misunderstood. My aunt had been having dinner with my parents and my brother. Someone's birthday, I think. I wasn't invited, which wasn't unusual. They often had family dinners without me. I was always too busy with work, or they didn't want to bother me. In retrospect, I should have found that suspicious, but honestly I was relieved not to have to sit through another meal where everyone needed something from me. The video was an accident. My aunt must have been trying to send something else to our family group chat and grabbed the wrong file. It showed the table at some restaurant I didn't recognize. You could see my mother's hands gesturing, my father's profile, my brother leaning back in his chair with that smirk I'd seen 1,000 times. The audio was what killed me. She really believed the dentist thing, my brother was saying, laughing. I told her I needed $3,000 for emergency dental work and she just transferred it, didn't even ask for a receipt. My mother's voice, warm and amused in a way it never sounded with me lately. Well, she's always been gullible. Remember when she was little and we convinced her the tooth fairy was real until she was 10? That's different, my aunt said, and I could hear the whine in her voice. That loose, comfortable tone people get when they're among friends. She's not gullible anymore, she's just desperate to be needed. It's kind of pathetic, actually. Pathetic but profitable, my father added, and they all laughed, all of them. Our little walking ATM, how much has she given us just this year? I calculated it last month, my aunt said. Between all of us about $83,000, not counting the car. Damn, my brother whistled. And she'll keep giving. She's got that guilt thing, you know, Catholic guilt without the actual Catholicism. What's the next emergency? My mother asked. We need to space them out better. The last 2 were too close together. The video ended, 43 seconds, less than a minute to demolish 8 years of what I thought was family loyalty. My aunt deleted the message 7 seconds after sending it. I saw the deleted message notification pop up, but I'd already saved it automatically, without thinking, some self-preservation instinct my conscious mind hadn't yet acknowledged. By 3 a.m. I'd moved past denial and into a kind of clinical shock. I pulled out my laptop and started pulling up bank statements, transfer after transfer, $4,200 for my father's surprise tax bill, $6,000 for my mother's emergency medical tests, $2,300 for my brother's textbooks, though I later found out he dropped out that semester, $3,500 for my aunt's rent increase when she renewed her lease. The numbers kept climbing. I had spreadsheets, I'm an accountant for God's sake, I track everything, but I'd never added up the family column because it felt wrong, like I was keeping score when I shouldn't. That's what they'd taught me, family doesn't keep score. But they did, absolutely they did. My aunt had calculated $83,000 and that was just this year. I started going further back. Year by year, the total climbed to $318,000 over 8 years. $318,000 for people who called me a walking ATM when they thought I couldn't hear. I didn't sleep. When the sun came up, I was still sitting at my kitchen table with the laptop open, bank statements scattered everywhere. I had a rent payment scheduled to auto-transfer to my parents in 3 days. $3,200, like every month for the last 8 years. I'd set it up as automatic because my father had complained about having to ask for it every month. He said it made him feel like a burden. I'd wanted him to feel secure. I'd wanted all of them to feel secure. My finger hovered over the cancel button for probably 20 minutes. I kept thinking about my mother's voice, pathetic but profitable. I kept thinking about my brother's laugh. I kept thinking about 8 years of being needed, of being essential, of being the one holding everything together. I cancelled the payment. Then I typed a message to the family group chat. Simple, friendly, even apologetic, because apparently 8 years of conditioning doesn't disappear just because you've seen behind the curtain. Hi everyone, some unexpected expenses came up this month. I'm going to have to skip the rent payment this time. Sorry for the short notice. I sent it at 6:42 a.m. and then put my phone face down on the table. My hands were shaking. I felt like I'd just committed a crime. The first response came at 8:15, my mother, what expenses? Then my father at 8:37, Nora, we have bills, you can't just decide not to pay. My brother at 9:53, seriously, you're going to screw us over like this? By noon I had 47 messages. The panic was palpable, coordinated in a way that would have been impressive if it wasn't so disturbing. My mother called 6 times. My father sent increasingly aggressive texts. My aunt, curiously, stayed quiet for the first few hours. By 2 p.m., my father cancelled our scheduled dinner that weekend, the one he'd been asking me to attend for weeks, saying how much my mother missed seeing me. Apparently she didn't miss me enough to deal with me when I wasn't paying. At 4:30 my mother called again. I answered this time and she was crying, full-on sobbing, the kind I'd only heard at funerals. I had an appointment tomorrow, she said urgently. The doctor had found something. I needed you to understand how serious this was. She couldn't deal with the stress right now. She couldn't deal with worrying about rent on top of everything else. What kind of appointment? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. A specialist, she said vaguely, for the thing I told you about. She hadn't told me about anything, but that was the pattern, wasn't it? Emergencies that were never fully explained, problems that required immediate money but never follow-up. I'd stopped asking for details years ago because it made me feel like I didn't trust them. What specialist? I pressed. Dr. Morrison, she said, irritated now behind the tears, at the clinic on 7th Street. I wrote it down. After I hung up I looked up Dr. Morrison, cosmetic medicine, Botox and fillers. The appointment cost $250 and was completely elective. I sat there staring at the website, the before and after photos, the glowing reviews, and felt something crack in my chest. She'd cried to me about cancer or tumors or something life-threatening, and she was getting cosmetic work done. The nausea hit me so hard I barely made it to the bathroom. My grandmother called at 7, 4 minutes and 22 seconds of the most emotionally devastating audio I'd ever heard. She didn't yell, she didn't even sound disappointed, she just sounded sad. Sad and confused and hurt. Why was I doing this? What had they done to deserve this? She'd always thought I was a good girl, she'd always been so proud of me. She didn't understand what had changed. I didn't know how hard things were for everyone right now. I didn't care that my father had worked himself to the bone his whole life, that my mother had sacrificed her career for us kids, that my brother was still trying to find his way. They need you, honey, she said, and her voice broke. Family needs you, that's love. I cried after that call, ugly crying, the kind where you can't catch your breath. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I'd misunderstood the video, maybe they were drunk and joking in poor taste, maybe I was being cruel and vindictive over nothing. Then my phone buzzed again. A message from a cousin I barely knew. We'd seen each other maybe 3 times in my life, always at big family gatherings. Hi Nora, weird question. Did you guarantee a loan for my brother? Someone from a loan company called saying you're listed as a guarantor and they need to confirm your contact information. Thought you should know in case it's a scam. My stomach dropped to the floor. I called him immediately. What loan company? What loaned? Some small finance place, he said. I thought it was spam, but they had your name and his name and a bunch of details. They said the loan is overdue and they're going to pursue the guarantor. That's you, apparently. I never guaranteed any loan, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from somewhere else. I've never even talked to a loan company. Yeah, that's what I figured, he said. Probably identity theft or something, you should look into it. After I hung up I sat very still for a long time. Years of conditioning told me to call my parents to ask them what was going on, to let them explain. But that video kept playing in my head, walking ATM, pathetic but profitable. I opened my laptop instead. If there was one fraudulent loan in my name, there might be more. By Saturday morning, I finally had all the pieces. I'd spent 2 days barely sleeping, digging through every financial record I could access, making calls, sending emails. My cousin had given me the name of the loan company that contacted him. I called them, explained the situation, and asked for documentation. They sent me a PDF, my signature at the bottom of a loan guarantee agreement, except it wasn't my signature. Close but not quite. The loops were wrong. The pressure was different. Someone had forged my signature. I contacted every major lender I could think of. By Saturday afternoon, I had copies of 4 separate contracts. 4. A rental guarantee for an apartment I'd never seen, 2 personal loans to family friends I'd never met, and the one my cousin had asked about from a small finance company. All with my forged signature. I spread them out on my dining room table and stared at them. The handwriting was skilled. Someone had practiced. Someone had studied my signature carefully enough to replicate it with reasonable accuracy. Not perfect, but close enough that an employee processing paperwork wouldn't look twice. My mother's handwriting was elegant, loopy. My aunt's was messier, more practical, but looking at these signatures, I thought I could see my aunt's efficiency in the execution, the way the letters connected, the pragmatic rather than decorative approach. My hands shook as I went back to my email. I'd been downloading everything I could find, every archived message, every old attachment. 3 hours later, I found it. An email chain between my mother and my aunt from 2 years ago. "We need to be smarter about this," my aunt had written. "I made a calendar. Each month has a different emergency. Space them out at least 2-3 weeks apart. If we cluster too many together, she might start asking questions." My mother's response: "What about amounts? She's been suspicious of the big asks." Mix it up, 1 month small, 1-2K. Next month medium, 3-4K, then nothing for a week or 2, then hit her with a big one when she's relaxed. 7-10K. Medical is best for the big ones, she never questions medical. They'd attached a spreadsheet, literally a spreadsheet with projected extractions by month, divided among family members to avoid overlap. My aunt's contact was listed as project manager. Project manager for extracting money from me. I kept digging. Old emails, archived text messages I'd forgotten to delete, a separate cloud storage account I'd set up years ago for family photos that nobody else remembered I had access to. And there it was, documentation from a property sale. My maternal grandmother had died when I was 23, right before I graduated. She'd left me a small inheritance. Nothing huge, $80,000 and some jewelry. My parents had handled the estate because I was busy with finals and job hunting. They told me the inheritance had gone mostly to taxes and probate fees. I got the jewelry, which I thought was the significant part anyway. The sale documents told a different story. The full $80,000 had been distributed to my mother. The jewelry had been costume pieces from a different relative. My actual inheritance had been sold and pocketed. I'd been robbed, not metaphorically, literally robbed. And then I found the group chat. Not the main family one we all used, a different one. I found it in an old phone backup I'd forgotten about from before I upgraded my phone 2 years ago. The chat was called Project E, just those 2 words, Project E. It took me a minute to realize the E was probably for Emma, my middle name, the name my family actually used for me, though I'd started using Nora professionally. I opened the chat history and immediately wished I hadn't. Message after message coordinating their asks, comparing notes on what worked best, timing strategies. My aunt was indeed the manager, sending messages like, "Emma seems stressed this week. Might be good for a sympathy play, or hold any asks this month, she mentioned her car needs repairs. My brother, ask her for tuition, she'll never verify. My father, medical angle works best with her, play up doctor visits. My mother, she asked about Thanksgiving, if she hosts we can ask for grocery money after." They'd been managing me, literally managing me like a resource, like an investment portfolio they were optimizing returns from. I read through 3 years of messages, 3 years of careful coordination, 3 years of treating me like a mark. The worst part wasn't even the money, It was the insight into how they actually saw me. My mother describing me as emotionally needy and how that was useful for guilt trips. My father joking about how I never learned to say no to family, like it was a character flaw to be exploited. My brother calling me desperate to be important and strategizing about how to use that. My aunt, the project manager, had written, "As long as we don't get greedy and make her suspicious, this is sustainable for years, maybe decades. She's not going to suddenly develop a spine." I closed the laptop, walked to the bathrooms, threw up again. By Sunday night I was done documenting everything. Screenshots, downloads, backups. I had evidence of fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. I had a video of them laughing about using me. I had proof of coordination and premeditation. I also had the worst stomachache of my life and couldn't remember the last time I'd eaten. My phone had been buzzing all weekend. I'd been ignoring it. 53 new messages in the family chat, voicemails, text messages to my work number I didn't even know they had. The desperation was escalating, coordinated in a way that would have been impressive if it wasn't so disturbing. My mother called 6 times. My father sent increasingly aggressive texts. My aunt, curiously, stayed quiet for the first few hours. By 2 p.m., my father cancelled our scheduled dinner that weekend, the one he'd been asking me to attend for weeks, saying how much my mother missed seeing me. Apparently she didn't miss me enough to deal with me when I wasn't paying. I drafted a response about 20 times, deleted it every time. What do you even say? Sorry, discovered you've been running a coordinated scam against me for years. Just found out you forged my signature on legal documents. Turns out the family I thought I had doesn't actually exist. Instead, I made copies of everything and put them in 3 different secure locations. Cloud storage, a safe deposit box I opened Monday morning, a trusted friend's house, because I was starting to worry about what would happen when they discovered I knew. Then I sent a message to the family group chat. "We need to talk, all of you, my place tomorrow night at 7. The responses came within seconds. Confusion, anger, demands for explanation. My mother trying the sympathy angle again, my father going straight to aggression, my brother attempting humor, my aunt notably staying silent. "Tomorrow night," I repeated, 7 o'clock, non-negotiable. I didn't sleep Monday night. I kept rehearsing what I'd say. I kept doubting everything. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe. But I'd heard them laugh. I'd read their messages. I'd seen the forged signatures. There were no more maybes. Tuesday at 6:45, I set up my tablet on the bookshelf with the video ready. At 6:53, I heard the knock. My father came in first, wearing that particular expression that meant he was about to lay down the law. My mother followed with red-rimmed eyes like she'd been crying. Strategic crying, I knew now. My brother slouched in wearing expensive sneakers I'd definitely paid for. My aunt came in last, and she was the only one who looked genuinely worried. "What's this about?" my father demanded before he'd even fully entered my apartment. "You drag us all here, stop paying rent, won't answer messages. What the hell is going on with you?" I didn't answer, I just pressed play on the tablet. 43 seconds of their own voices, their own words, their own laughter at my expense. The silence after the video ended was profound. My mother's strategic tears dried up instantly. My brother went pale. My father's face turned an alarming shade of red. My aunt closed her eyes. Then I said, my voice surprisingly calm, "Walking ATM, that's what you call me when you think I can't hear." My father recovered first. That was his way, aggression as defense. "You recorded us, you've been spying on your own family." "Your sister sent it to me by accident," I said, "but nice try flipping this." "This is out of context," my mother jumped in. She'd switched to concern now, abandoning the tears. "Honey, we were drinking, we were joking. You know how people talk when they've had a few glasses of wine." "Sure," I said, "and Project E that was also just drunk joking." The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. My aunt's eyes snapped open. I showed the screenshots on my tablet, the chat messages, the coordination, the spreadsheet with projected extractions. I scrolled through it like I was presenting at a business meeting. My brother was the first to crack. "Nora, look, I know how this looks, but—" "But what?" I interrupted. "But you weren't really coordinating how to manipulate me. But you didn't really call me desperate and pathetic. But this isn't really a group chat dedicated to managing me like a resource to be mined." You're being dramatic, my father said, but he sounded less certain now. Families help each other, that's what families do. Help, I repeated. Is that what you call forging my signature on loan documents? That's when my mother made her move. She lunged forward, arms outstretched, trying to hug me. Emma, honey, you're not well, you're seeing things that aren't there. Let me call my therapist. She can recommend someone. You're clearly under a lot of stress and not thinking clearly. I stepped back sharply. Don't touch me. See, she said, turning to the others. This isn't her, this isn't our Emma. Our Emma would never talk to us like this. Your Emma never existed, I said. She was a character you created, a role you needed me to play, the obedient daughter who never questions anything and just keeps writing checks. My father's face was purple now. You want to talk about what we've done for you, who paid for your college, who gave you a place to live for 18 years, who fed you and clothed you and made sure you had everything you needed. That's called being a parent, I said. That's the bare minimum you're supposed to do. It doesn't entitle you to 8 years of financial abuse. Financial abuse, my brother laughed, but it was forced. Jesus, Nora, you're turning this into some kind of criminal drama. We asked for help. You gave it. That's not abuse, that's family. You coordinated your requests in a group chat, I said. You tracked how much you could take without making me suspicious. You forged my signature on legal documents. You stole my inheritance. At what point does it become abuse in your definition? My mother tried again. We can explain all of this, just give us a chance to explain. You're being so cold right now, this isn't like you. You're right, I said. It's not like the me you built, the me who never says no, the me who's desperate to be needed, the me with the guilt complex you spent 8 years cultivating. You need help, my father said. Professional help. Are you having some kind of breakdown? I need you to leave, I said. Emma. Nora, my name is Nora, and I need you to leave my apartment right now. My brother hadn't said anything in a while. He was looking at his phone and his face had gone grey. Did you tell people? He said quietly. Did you tell people about this? I told my lawyer, I said, and I filed a police report about the forged signatures, so yes, I told people. The explosion was immediate. My father started yelling about lawsuits and family betrayal and how I'd regret this. My mother was crying again, but this time they seemed like real tears, tears of panic. My brother kept saying, you called the cops on your own family, over and over like a broken record. My aunt finally spoke. How much do you want? Everyone stopped, turned to look at her. To keep quiet, she clarified. To make this go away, how much? I stared at her. You think this is about money, you think I want to blackmail you. Isn't it always about money, she said, and she sounded tired. And that's what all of this is about, money. No, I said. This is about 8 years of being used, 8 years of being lied to, 8 years of thinking I was part of a family that actually cared. We do care, my mother tried, but even she couldn't sell it anymore. Out, I said, all of you out. My father made one more attempt at intimidation, invading my space, trying to loom over me like he had my whole childhood. You're making a serious mistake. When you calm down and realize what you've done, the damage you've caused, you're going to regret it. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I have friends, I have connections. I'll ruin your reputation so thoroughly that. There are cameras in this apartment, I said quietly, recording everything, and my lawyer is on standby. Keep threatening me and find out how that goes. There weren't actually cameras, but they didn't know that. They left, finally. My brother threw me one last look that was half hatred, half something that might have been shame. My mother tried to grab my hand as she passed. I pulled away. The door closed, the lock clicked. I stood in my living room, shaking so hard I had to sit down before I fell. My hands were trembling. My chest was tight. I kept waiting to feel victorious, vindicated, strong. Instead, I felt sick, hollowed out, like I'd just killed something and wasn't sure if it needed to die. I spent that night on my bathroom floor, alternating between crying and dry heaving, the weight of what I'd done, what they'd done, crushing me in waves. Then I checked my phone. My brother had posted on social media an hour ago. Sometimes the people you help the most turn out to be the most ungrateful. My sister has decided to abandon our family during the hardest time of our lives. My father is dealing with serious health issues. My mother needs support. And she's decided her money is more important than her family. If you know her, maybe remind her what it means to be a decent human being." The comments were already rolling in, dozens of them, family friends expressing shock and disappointment, people I'd known my whole life calling me selfish and cruel. The post had been shared over 200 times. My phone started buzzing with messages from people I barely knew, all condemning me based on his version of events. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my lawyer with a note asking if this crossed into defamation territory. She advised me to document but not engage, and to save the evidence in case it escalated to the point where legal action was necessary. Wednesday morning I sat in a lawyer's office with printouts of everything I'd found: the forged signatures, the group chat, the inheritance documents, the email chains, the video. "This is fraud," the lawyer said, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Multiple counts. The forged signatures alone are serious. Add the inheritance situation and we're talking potential criminal charges." "I don't want to send them to jail," I heard myself say. "I just want them to leave me alone." "You could press charges," she said, "or use the threat of charges as leverage to make them back off permanently. But either way, we need to deal with the fraudulent contracts. You're legally liable for those debts unless we prove forgery." "How long will that take?" "Months, probably. We'll need handwriting analysis, which isn't cheap. We'll have to contact each creditor individually. It's going to be a process." I felt exhausted just thinking about it, but what choice did I have? "What about the social media thing?" I asked, showing her my brother's post. "He's lying about me publicly." "That's more complicated," she admitted. "Legally, he's on the edge. He's not stating facts, just giving his version of events. Unless it crosses into actual defamation, there's not much we can do, but you can document everything in case it escalates." I left her office with a signed contract and a retainer paid, my first official act of protecting myself from my own family. The rest of the week was a blur of phone calls and paperwork. I contacted the creditors with the forged signatures. Most of them were skeptical at first. One woman at a finance company actually laughed. "Your family forged your signature, that's a new one." "It's not funny," I said, and something in my voice must have convinced her because she apologized immediately. I arranged for handwriting analysis. A graphologist specializing in forgery cases charged me $500 to examine the signatures. His report came back within a few weeks. In my professional opinion, these signatures were not executed by the same hand as the provided reference samples. They appear to be skilled forgeries, likely by someone familiar with the authentic signature. Armed with the report, I managed to void 2 of the 4 contracts. The creditors agreed to pursue the actual borrowers instead. The other 2 were going to take longer because the companies were smaller and less cooperative. As for my grandmother's inheritance, my lawyer filed the property sale documentation in our records. "We could pursue this," she said, "but it would mean a lengthy civil lawsuit and proving intent to defraud. It happened 8 years ago. The statute of limitations varies, and it might cost more in legal fees than you'd recover. I want you to know your options, but I'd understand if you want to let this one go." I thought about it for days. Finally, I decided to document it, keep it on my records, but not actively pursue it. The $80,000 was already gone, spent long ago. Chasing it would mean years more of being tied to them. I needed to move forward. I opened accounts at an entirely new bank, transferred everything, changed all my passwords, set up security alerts for any credit checks or applications in my name. Then I went to the police station and filed a formal report. The officer taking my statement looked uncomfortable the whole time. "Family crime is complicated. Nobody likes it. You understand that if we investigate this, your family members could face charges." "I understand." "And you're sure you want to proceed with this?" I sat there in that sterile police station with the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead and thought about 8 years of being used, of being called a walking ATM, of my forged signature, of my stolen inheritance. "Yes," I said, "I'm sure." The officer took my information and the evidence I'd brought. She said someone from the fraud division would contact me. I shouldn't expect quick results. These cases take time. I walked out of the station and sat in my car for 20 minutes, crying so hard I couldn't see to drive. Not because I regretted filing the report, but because I'd just turned my own family into criminals in the eyes of the law. Because there was no coming back from this. Because I'd spent my whole life believing family was sacred, and now I was learning that some families are just crimes waiting to be discovered. That night I got a notification from my old bank. Someone had tried to apply for a loan in my name. The fraud alert I'd set up caught it, and the bank called to verify. No, I told them, I didn't apply for any loan, that's fraud. Do you know who might have attempted this? The bank representative asked. I knew, of course I knew. My father had my social security number, my date of birth, all my information. He'd probably been using it for years, and I'd never thought to check. My father, I said, the words tasted like ash. It was probably my father. There was a pause on the line. I'm sorry, she said, and she sounded like she genuinely meant it. We'll flag your account and file a report. You may want to freeze your credit. I froze my credit, all 3 bureaus. It was surprisingly easy. 15 minutes online and suddenly nobody could open anything in my name without my explicit approval. I should have felt empowered. Instead, it felt like building a fortress against people who were supposed to love me. 3 weeks passed, 3 weeks of silence from my family except for the online smear campaign. The guilt was relentless. I slept poorly, questioned every decision, kept my phone close obsessively even though I'd blocked their numbers. Then the news came through mutual acquaintances. My father had lost his car to repossession. My mother had gotten a job at a retail store. My brother was facing eviction. Each update hit like a punch, making me wonder if I'd gone too far. But every time guilt threatened to break me, I remembered that video, that group chat, those forged signatures. Saturday night I woke up at 2 a.m. in a cold sweat, my hand already reaching for my phone. I'd been dreaming about transferring money, about fixing everything, about being needed again. That's when I realized how deep the conditioning went. They'd trained me so thoroughly that even knowing the truth, even having proof of their manipulation, my instinct was still to help them, to save them, to be their ATM. I got out of bed, made coffee, sat at my kitchen table and opened my banking app. The account was healthy. For the first time in 8 years, my savings were growing instead of being drained month after month. I had money, security, a cushion, and it felt wrong. It felt selfish, like I was hoarding resources while my family struggled. They'd really done a number on me. Sunday night I got a text from my uncle, my father's brother, someone I'd only seen on major holidays. We weren't close. Your father called me asking for money, the message said. He wanted me to know you'd cut them off completely. He told me his version of the story. Then I talked to your aunt, got a different story. Then I did some digging and found out I'm not the first relative they've tried to borrow from. I think you should know something. 15 years ago I was exactly where you are. They did the same thing to me. When I finally said no, they cut me out completely. Haven't spoken to me since except when they need something. You're not the villain here. You're just the latest person to figure out who they really are. Stay strong, don't give in. I read that message probably 50 times. Someone understood. Someone had been through this. Someone knew I wasn't being cruel. I was finally waking up. I replied, thank you, I needed to hear that. He responded within minutes. They're going to try everything. Guilt, anger, manipulation, fake emergencies. Don't fall for it. You're not responsible for adults who refuse to take care of themselves. That message became my anchor. When guilt threatened to overwhelm me, I'd read it again and again. Monday morning, I was at my desk at work when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Nora, a woman's voice I didn't recognize? Yes. We're calling from St. Mary's Hospital. We have your mother here. She was brought in by ambulance this morning. We're calling her emergency contacts. My heart stopped. Every fear, every guilt, every doubt came rushing back. My mother was in the hospital. My mother was hurt. What if she was dying? What if this was real and serious and I'd refused to help and now it was too late? What happened? I asked, already grabbing my keys. She's okay, she's stable. She's asking for you, can you come? I was halfway to my car when something made me stop. Something about the timing. Something about how convenient this emergency was. I called the hospital back. Different number, the main line. Hi, I got a call saying my mother was brought in by ambulance. Can you confirm a patient? Her name is... One moment please. Keyboard sounds, a pause. I'm not showing any recent ambulance admissions with that name. Are you sure she's at this location? The person who called said she was brought in this morning. Let me check with the ER. Maury typing, a longer pause. No, I'm not seeing her in our system at all. Are you sure you have the right hospital? My hands were shaking. Someone called me from this hospital saying she was there. That's very strange. Let me transfer you to security. I hung up, called the unknown number back. It rang twice, then went to a generic voicemail. It was fake, the emergency was fake. Someone, probably my own mother, had staged a fake hospital emergency to get me running over with my wallet open. I sat in my car in the parking lot and laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable, so perfectly them. When guilt didn't work, when anger didn't work, fabricate an emergency. It was right there in the group chat. Medical emergencies were their favorite tactic. But this time I hadn't fallen for it. This time I'd verified. I went back to my office, blocked the unknown number, sent a message to my lawyer documenting the fake emergency call. They never tried that particular tactic again, probably realizing I'd started verifying everything. Then I cried in the bathroom for 15 minutes because even knowing it was fake, part of me still wanted to believe my mother really needed me. That's what abuse does. It makes you question your own reality even when you have the evidence in your hands. A message from my uncle that night validated everything. He'd been through exactly this 15 years ago. You're not the villain here, he wrote. You're just the latest person to figure out who they really are. Stay strong, don't give in. That message became my anchor. 2 months after I cut off the money, I got a text from my brother. First direct contact since the confrontation in my apartment. Can we talk in person, just you and me? No parents, no drama, I want to apologize properly. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe him. My brother and I had been close once when we were kids, before the money, before the manipulation. Maybe there was something real there worth saving. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Coffee shop, public place, afternoon when it would be busy. He showed up looking rough, lost weight, dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes. Part of me felt that familiar guilt. Part of me wondered if I was wrong about everything. We ordered coffee, sat down. He didn't speak for a while, just stirred his cup with that nervous energy he'd always had. I'm sorry, he finally said. For everything, for the group chat, for the video, for treating you like an ATM. You were right about everything, I was wrong. The words sounded sincere, he looked sincere, his eyes were even a little watery. I've been thinking a lot about it, he continued. About how we treated you, how I treated you, it was wrong. You deserved better, you were just trying to help and we took advantage of that. I get it now, I really get it. He was saying all the right things, everything I'd wanted to hear, every apology I'd imagined during those sleepless nights. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, he said. I know it's going to take time, but I wanted you to know I understand, I see it now, and I'm going to do better, I'm going to make things right. I felt myself softening, maybe he really understood, maybe he'd actually learned, maybe. His phone shifted in his shirt pocket, just slightly. The movement caught my attention, the angle was wrong. The camera lens was facing outward, pointing at me. Your phone is recording, I said flatly. He went pale. What? No, it's just. I reached across the table and pulled his phone from his pocket before he could stop me. The screen was lit up, recording app open, timer running, 37 minutes of footage. He'd been recording our entire conversation. You were going to edit this, I said, not a question. Take things I said out of context, make me look bad, use it against me. Nora, no, I just wanted to remember what we talked about. I wasn't going to. Weren't going to what? Post it online, send it to relatives, use it to prove I'm the bad guy. He tried to reach for the phone, I held it away. It's not like that, I swear, I just wanted to. Get out, I said. Nora, please. Get out of here before I call the police. You tried to secretly record me without my consent. My lawyer mentioned this kind of thing could get you in serious trouble. He left, practically ran out of the coffee shop, left his coffee behind, left me sitting there with his phone in my hand and his fake apology still hanging in the air. I deleted the recording, factory reset his phone because I'm petty like that, left it with the barista for him to retrieve. Then I sat in that coffee shop for another hour drinking cold coffee, feeling absolutely nothing. Not anger, not betrayal, not even disappointment, just tired, so incredibly tired. They weren't going to stop. That was the lesson. There was no bottom for them, no moment of genuine reflection, no real apology, just more manipulation, more schemes, more attempts to extract something from me. I'd wanted to believe my brother was different, that maybe he'd gotten caught up in it but wasn't really like them. But he was, they all were, this was who they were. 2 weeks later, the next move came from my mother through the priest from the church I'd attended as a child. I hadn't gone to services in years, but he had my number from when I'd been active in the youth group as a teenager. "Nora, this is Father Michael. Your mother came to see me. She's very worried about you. She wanted me to reach out and see if you'd be willing to talk." "What did she tell you?" I asked. "That there's been a family disagreement, that you've cut off contact. She's concerned about your well-being. She mentioned you might be dealing with some mental health challenges." Of course she did. When all else fails, question the sanity of the person calling you out. "Father Michael, did she mention why I cut contact?" "She said there was a misunderstanding about money, that these things happen in families, but she's your mother, she loves you. Surely this can be worked out." "Did she tell you that she and my family robbed me, forged my signature on legal documents, coordinated their manipulation of me in a group chat?" Silence on the line. "Those are serious accusations. They're documented facts. I have proof. I've filed police reports. I'm not having a mental health crisis. I'm protecting myself from people who have been using me for years." "I see, that's not what she told me." "I'm sure it's not, but that's the truth, and I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't pass along any messages from her. I've made my boundaries clear." "Of course, I'm sorry you're going through this." After that call, I found out my mother had also contacted my old therapist, trying to get information about my mental state. The therapist couldn't share anything due to confidentiality, but she called to let me know about the attempt and to check if I was okay. "She's trying to build a narrative that I'm unstable," I told her, "so she can discredit anything I say about what they did." "That's a common tactic in family abuse situations," the therapist said gently. "You're not crazy, you're responding normally to abnormal circumstances." I needed to hear that more than I wanted to admit. The next attempt came through legal channels. My father sent a formal letter from a lawyer demanding family support payments based on an alleged verbal agreement that I would provide for the family indefinitely. My lawyer's response was swift and brutal. She sent back documentation of the fraud, the forged signatures, the stolen inheritance. She included a note that any further legal harassment would result in countersuits and criminal complaints. We didn't hear from his lawyer again. Then came the holiday season. I'd been dreading it. My first Thanksgiving alone, my first Christmas without family. The guilt was overwhelming. Every commercial showing happy families, every social media post about gratitude and togetherness felt like an accusation. Thanksgiving morning, I woke up to a text from my father. "We're having dinner at 2. Your mother made your favorite pie. Your seat is waiting if you change your mind." Like nothing had happened, like we were a normal family having a normal disagreement, like I could just show up and everything would be fine. I blocked the number, stayed home, ordered Chinese food, watched movies, tried not to think about years of family Thanksgivings, my mother's cooking, the traditions I'd grown up with, tried not to think about how I was choosing to be alone. Christmas Eve, the message came from a number I didn't recognize. "When you're old and alone someday, you'll understand what you've done. You'll remember this time and realize you destroyed your family over money. You threw away the people who loved you most. I hope it was worth it." I knew that writing style, my mother. I didn't respond, just added the number to my block list, which now numbered 14. 14 different phone numbers they'd tried to contact me from. Christmas Day, I volunteered at a soup kitchen, served meals to people who had nothing, helped clean up. Talked to people who'd been abandoned by their families for reasons they couldn't control. Addiction, mental illness, being gay, being different. I documented every post, every comment, every threatening message. My lawyer had them all on file. If they crossed the line into actual defamation with provably false statements, she'd said, we have everything we need. So far they'd stayed vague enough to avoid legal action. I had my safety net ready if needed. One woman, probably in her 60s, shared her story. Her family had cut her out 20 years ago when she divorced her abusive husband. They'd sided with him because he had money and status. She'd been alone every holiday since. "Do you regret it?" I asked, "standing up for yourself?" She smiled, "Not for a second. I'd rather be alone and safe than surrounded by people who hurt me." I went home that night and didn't cry. For the first time in months, I didn't cry. January brought a new year and a strange sense of calm. No contact from the family, no new manipulation attempts, just silence. I started therapy, not because I thought I was crazy, but because I needed help processing everything. I needed to understand how I'd let myself be used for so long. I needed to learn how to set boundaries without drowning in guilt. "They didn't use you," my therapist said during our third session. "They groomed you from childhood. They trained you to prioritize their needs over yours, to feel guilty about having boundaries, to believe your worth came from what you could provide them. That's not a character flaw, that's conditioning." It helped to hear that, to understand I wasn't stupid or weak. I was the product of a lifetime of careful manipulation. In February, I used some of the money I'd been saving to renovate my apartment. New paint, new furniture, plants. I made it mine in a way it never had been when I was constantly worried about having enough to send home. In March, I signed up for a pottery class I'd wanted to take for years but never had time for. I made some really terrible bowls. I laughed more than I'd laughed in months. In April, I adopted a cat from the shelter. A scrawny orange tabby with a torn ear and the loudest purr I'd ever heard. I named him Mango. He slept on my chest every night and woke me with headbutts every morning and demanded attention at the most inconvenient times. Having something depend on me that wasn't taking advantage felt revolutionary. In May, my uncle invited me to his daughter's graduation party, the same uncle who'd reached out months ago, who'd been through what I was going through. I almost didn't go. Social anxiety, fear of questions, fear of running into other family members, but I went. I met cousins I never knew existed. My uncle's kids, now adults, funny and kind and nothing like the family I grew up with. His wife welcomed me like I'd been part of the family forever. Nobody asked about money. Nobody mentioned my parents. "They tried to isolate us too," my uncle told me quietly as we got drinks. "That's part of their pattern, keep people separate, prevent them from comparing notes, keep them dependent." "Did you ever forgive them?" I asked. He shook his head. "Forgiveness isn't the same as letting people hurt you again. I forgave them years ago for my own peace, but I never let them back in, and I don't regret it." Through mutual friends, I heard updates. My father was working as a manager at a retail store, making decent money, not great but enough. My mother had her part-time job and apparently complained about it constantly, but she was managing. My brother had moved to a cheaper apartment and was taking online classes. My aunt, the project manager of the whole scheme, had apparently moved to another state shortly after our confrontation. Nobody seemed to know exactly where, and I didn't care to find out. She was the only one who never tried to contact me again, probably because she knew she was the most culpable. As for my grandmother, I never spoke to her again. She called one more time about a month after everything exploded, but I couldn't make myself answer. I don't know if my mother ever told her the truth about the fraud, the forged signatures, the group chat. Probably not. I imagine they've told her some version where I'm the villain, the ungrateful granddaughter who abandoned the family for no reason. That hurts more than I expected, but I couldn't find a way to explain it all to her. There are bridges you have to let burn. They were surviving, they'd always been capable of surviving. They just hadn't wanted to, it was easier to drain me dry. I felt something when I heard these updates, but it wasn't guilt anymore. It was closer to relief, proof that I hadn't destroyed them, proof that they could take care of themselves when they had to, proof that I wasn't responsible for their choices. In June, I got a promotion at work. My boss called me into her office and I felt that familiar panic. Someone from my family had called my workplace, they'd caused trouble. "Your performance has been exceptional this year," she said instead. "You've taken on additional projects. You've been mentoring junior staff, and I want to recognize that. We're promoting you to senior analyst with a 12% salary increase." I cried in her office. Embarrassing, unprofessional tears that I couldn't explain were tears of relief. Relief that my job was safe. Relief that someone saw my value as something more than the money I could provide. Relief that I was building something that was mine and mine alone. One July afternoon, I was at my neighbor's apartment helping her figure out her new computer. She was 73, lived alone, had trouble with arthritis. I'd been stopping by every few days for a couple months, helping with groceries and technology and whatever else she needed. "You're such a good girl," she said, patting my hand. "Your family must be so proud of you." "I don't talk to my family," I said, surprising myself with the honesty. "Oh, that's a shame, a family disagreement." She was quiet for a moment, then she said something that hit harder than expected. "Well, you've been more family to me these past few months than my own son has been in years. Family isn't always blood, dear. Sometimes it's just the people who show up." When I got home that night, I realized something. I'd been helping her because I wanted to, because she needed it and I could, because it felt good to be useful in a way that wasn't twisted or manipulative. Nobody was coordinating, nobody was tracking, nobody was calling me a walking ATM behind my back. This is what healthy helping looked like: choice, not obligation; appreciation, not exploitation. August marked 6 months since I'd cut contact. 6 months of silence. 6 months of slowly, painfully rebuilding myself. I wasn't the same person I'd been. That person was dead, killed by a 43-second video and a group chat called Project E. The person I was now was harder, more careful, slower to trust, quick to set boundaries, but also maybe starting to be okay. I didn't wake up every morning thinking about them anymore. I didn't compulsively check my blocked messages folder. I didn't jump every time my phone rang. The guilt was still there, it probably always would be in some form, but it had shrunk, it had become manageable, background noise instead of a constant scream. One Saturday afternoon, I was at my pottery class when my phone rang. Unknown number. I normally let those go to voicemail, but something made me step out and answer. "Hi Nora," a familiar voice, my brother. I should have hung up, should have blocked the number immediately. Instead I said, "How did you get this number?" "I called your office, said I was a potential client." "That's harassment." "I know, I'm sorry, I just needed to tell you something. No tricks this time, I swear." Like last time with the recording. I deserved that, I deserved everything, but please just listen for 1 minute. Against my better judgment, I waited. "I got a job," he said. "A real job with benefits and everything. I started 2 months ago and I've been paying my own rent without help from anyone. I'm really doing it. I wanted you to know you were right about everything. We could have taken care of ourselves. We just didn't want to, and that was wrong. What we did to you was wrong." I didn't say anything, couldn't say anything with the lump in my throat. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he continued. "I'm not asking for anything, I just wanted you to know I get it now. I understand what you were trying to show us, and I'm sorry. Really, really sorry." He hung up before I could respond. I stood there in the community center parking lot holding my phone, not knowing what to feel. Relief, vindication, sadness, maybe all of it, maybe none of it. The thing about closure is it rarely comes in the form you expect. Sometimes it's not a dramatic confrontation or a heartfelt apology. Sometimes it's just a brief phone call in a parking lot that changes nothing and everything at the same time. I went back to my class, finished the mug I was working on. It was lopsided and the glaze was uneven and the handle was too small. I loved it anyway. That night I sat on my couch with Mango purring in my lap and thought about the last 6 months. About everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. About the family I'd imagined versus the family that actually existed. About the person I'd been who let herself be used, and the person I was becoming who wouldn't. I thought about my uncle's words about how forgiveness doesn't mean letting people hurt you again, about how family isn't always blood, about how sometimes the people who show up are the ones who matter. I thought about my neighbor who called me family, my co-workers who noticed when I was struggling and offered support without asking for details, my therapist who helped me understand I wasn't broken, just breaking free, the uncle I barely knew who validated everything I'd been feeling. I thought about the money I'd saved over 6 months, how my account was growing instead of being drained, how I could finally afford things for myself without calculating how much my family would need. I thought about my brother's phone call, about whether it changed anything, about whether I believed him. I decided it didn't matter. Maybe he was being genuine, maybe it was another manipulation. Either way, I wasn't going back. I wasn't reopening that door. I wasn't giving them another chance to call me a walking ATM. Some doors, once closed, need to stay closed. I pulled out my phone and texted my lawyer just to check, asked about the status of the remaining fraudulent contracts. She responded quickly. All 4 have been resolved, your name is officially clear, all forged signatures have been disputed and removed from your record. As for the police investigation, she told me the detective had contacted her weeks ago. They'd interviewed my father, but the DA decided not to pursue criminal charges. Apparently, family fraud cases rarely move forward without the victim actively pushing for prosecution, and I'd made it clear I just wanted to be left alone. The case remained technically open but inactive. I was okay with that. I didn't need them in jail, I just needed them out of my life. It was over, officially, legally over. I texted my uncle thanking him for the graduation party invitation and asking if maybe we could get coffee soon. He responded enthusiastically with 3 available dates. I texted my therapist asking about scheduling an extra session because I had some things to process about my brother's call. I texted my neighbor asking if she needed help with anything this week. Then I put my phone down and just existed for a while. In my apartment that I'd renovated with my money, with my cat who depended on me in healthy ways, with my life that was finally truly mine. I was happy, not completely. There was still grief for what might have been, still anger at what they'd done, still moments of crushing loneliness when I thought about holidays and family gatherings I'd never attend again. But underneath all that, growing stronger every day, was something I hadn't felt in 8 years, relief. And maybe, slowly, carefully, starting to feel peace. I wasn't a walking ATM anymore. I wasn't Project E, I wasn't their emergency fund, or their safety net, or their perpetual obligation. I was just Nora. And for the first time in my adult life, that felt like enough.